An Aston Martin, complete with hatted and jacketed driver, picked her up at her London hotel. She'd been in the city for a week, ostensibly to start her vacation early, though she spent most of her time working on her laptop. Why relax and think when there was wonderful, numbing work at hand? She'd been to England once before while touring Europe after college with a backpack, a rail pass, and a best friend who'd ditched her in Vienna for a guy from Albania. She'd had no romantic notions of England then, her experience mostly revolving around the question, will it rain before I can book it to the next hostel? Now, she looked over the landscape with expectation, with hope. Come on, she willed through the car window. Come on, change me. I dare you. They entered a drowsy countryside of low green hills and hedged pastures. Trees engulfed any sight of the nearby town, and a building styled as an inn came into view. A woman of 60 waited in the threshold. She wore an empire waist dress, a lacy cap over her hair, and a smile that seemed to pinch a bit. Charlotte wanted to pat her on the back and say, "Don't worry, you don't have to smile on my account." "Welcome to 1816, the woman said as Charlotte stepped out of the car. "I am Mrs. Wattlesbrook, proprietress of Pembrook Park, and your hostess for the next 2 weeks. Please come in." The inn was cozy and quaint, with a fire in the fireplace, a table set for tea. "Have a seat and refresh yourself while we get acquainted," said Mrs. Wattlesbrook. "Would it be all right if I changed first?" It was weird standing there in jeans beside Mrs. Wattlesbrook in her old-timey attire, like being the only person at a dance who'd worn a costume. 10th grade, Charlotte went as a disco queen. Mrs. Wattlesbrook sniffed, but escorted her to an upper room where an ancient maid awaited. A full 45 minutes later, Charlotte was dressed. Socks, garters, boots, bloomers, chemise, corset, dress. The maid scooped Charlotte's shoulder-length hair into a well-pinned twist, and Charlotte inspected herself in the mirror. She squinted. She gaped. She flared her nostrils menacingly. Nope, no significant change yet. Her insides still felt chilled. She might as well have been dressed as a disco queen. So, it's not the corset that does the trick, she thought. It's not the dress. But it's a start. Lately, she'd become the divorced woman. She'd let herself be defined by what James had done to her. Now, it was her chance to redefine things. "I choose this," she told the reflection. The reflection didn't change. She hoped it wouldn't take its time. She only had 2 weeks. Charlotte returned to the tea table. The corset was as stiff as a life vest. She couldn't lean back comfortably or bend easily to scratch her ankle. Which was the point, she supposed. Austen ladies didn't have itchy ankles or desires to lounge. Austen ladies were grandly pretty, like marble statues. She kind of hoped she was pretty. She'd forgotten to check that in the mirror. Mrs. Wattlesbrook opened her folder and reviewed etiquette rules and the schedules for each day, and with the help of 2 silent maids, taught her to play the card game whist. "You have read all of Austen's works?" Mrs. Wattlesbrook asked, playing a card. "Mm-hmm," said Charlotte. "And in your papers you selected Pride and Prejudice as your favorite?" Mrs. Wattlesbrook had sent her a 30-page questionnaire to fill out beforehand, requiring more information than if she'd been applying for special forces. "It strikes me as a completely perfect novel," Charlotte said. "So it is," Mrs. Wattlesbrook said, making Charlotte glad she had chosen it. Initially, Pride and Prejudice had been her favorite, but 2 other books had impacted Charlotte even more upon rereading. Northanger Abbey made her laugh out loud, and Mansfield Park resonated because it was the only Austen novel